As long as I've been with Jazz, Jazz has not been the only person that I've had sex with.
What does a submissive woman do for her man?
Everything.
What does that mean?
You know, like packing his bag, unpacking his bag.
Damn! Stop treating people like the help.
Y'all, from baby daddy drama to Instagram breakdowns, Jasmin Brown and Cam Newton's story just flipped into full-blown chaos. And now, right as Jasmine is heavily pregnant, Cam is about to introduce his new woman.
I mean, he's spoiled. And you know, when I talk to my girlfriends about it, they're always like, oh, how are you guys doing? And I'm just like, girl, he's rotten. I'm like, he's spoiled rotten. Like, he's rotten.
And y'all, it's turned into a full-blown circus. A live morality play unfolding right in front of us through podcasts, social feeds, and endless online chatter. The whole situation has exposed the sharp contrast between the glossy image they try to sell and the raw, messy reality happening behind closed doors. Honestly, it feels like watching a woman publicly surrender to a man whose track record already screams trouble, while convincing herself she's different from the rest. Let's not forget, even a psychologist on Cam's own show once told him point-blank that he was on the path to building broken families.
But you will, and I say this with all respect and love, what I'm about to say next, okay, Cam? But you will selfishly create broken families.
But in case you missed the start of this whole chaos, let's run it back real quick. The latest chapter in this messy saga kicked off with a raw Instagram post from Jasmin Brown that stopped everybody in their tracks. In a rare moment of brutal honesty, she admitted she'd be terrified to have a son with Cam Newton, writing, "If God gave me a son, I'd be so nervous because I feel like I subconsciously raised him to be a man I could only dream of but never experienced. And that's traumatic." And literally everybody was like, ain't no way this is just some random passing thought. It read like a direct shot at her own relationship. Now here's where the rubber meets the road. This is coming from a woman pregnant with her second child by Cam, his 9th baby overall. For her to say that out loud was basically a confession of deep dissatisfaction, a public wound she opened on herself. She revealed that she was low-key heartbroken, that the man she's building a family with isn't the man she'd ever want her son to grow up and become. And that paradox, especially from someone who's defended Cam so fiercely in the past, is exactly what makes this whole story hit so hard. But if you know Cam's history with women, then you already know where this is headed. This dude has always been oddly open, almost too open, about his complicated, sometimes straight-up contradictory takes on love, family, and commitment.
As long as I've been with Jazz, Jazz has not been the only person that I've had sex with.
And let's not forget, Cam was locked in for years with his ex, Kia Proctor, and they had a whole family together. But after 4 kids, common sense finally struck Kia, and she packed up and left faster than she came in. And here's the kicker. Despite the long-term setup and despite building an entire unit, he never put a ring on it. One thing about Cam is that he has never been shy about embarrassing the women in his life publicly. Just like what's happening now with Jazz, he also aired out his private business with Kia for anyone who cared to listen.
Jazz allows me to speak to her, and we are able to have banter. And I hate that I embarrassed her, because no woman ever wants to admit that openly.
But what? I'm sorry, I want to make sure.
That their person has not always been with them.
On his Funky Friday podcast, Cam flat out admitted that marriage was never his ultimate goal.
I'm not married, right? I have beautiful children.
How many?
8.
I didn't do my research. I thought it was 4, but 8. Okay.
No, baby.
Cool.
It's
By how
8.
many women?
3.
Then in a sit-down with Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, he admitted,
And this is the kicker. I want more. Now,
By multiple women? What's the intent?
I
I'm
just
saying
want God
about
to
your
bring
wife.
her. I just want God to bring her.
Oh, okay. And you have, so you just...
Because my point is this. My desire to get married is lower than my fear of divorce. So, as you had said, Dr. Brian, you said it, I didn't say it, I will agree. I'm just taking my time.
Translation? Cam's perfectly fine making babies with as many women as possible, but when it comes to the actual legal binding part of marriage, it's off the table. His philosophy in a nutshell: family without a contract. But where things really started to rub people the wrong way was after his split with Kia. Instead of just co-parenting quietly, Cam dragged everything into court. He sued her for paternity and custody, And then, one of the pettiest moves we've ever seen. Filed a lawsuit demanding back the Bentley he had gifted her. But here's the thing. It was never just about the Bentley. Sources close to the situation called it exactly what it was. A passive-aggressive power play, meant to intimidate Kia into accepting his version of normal, no matter how toxic it looked. That lawsuit, paired with Cam's own words, made one thing crystal clear. He loves to talk about being a family man, a so-called super dad. But his actions don't always line up with that polished image. And the public noticed, because nothing screams contradiction louder than preaching fatherhood goals, while suing your ex for a car she earned the hard way after giving you 4 children.
I grew up in a 3-parent household, my mom, my father, and my grandmother. And I knew what a woman was, not a bad bitch.
Okay, what's the difference?
A woman.
But here's the thing about Cam. He's always leaned on his very traditional views about women, making them one of the biggest talking points of his public image. He's been called out countless times for those old-school, borderline patriarchal takes. And yet, that's exactly what he continues to build his identity around, especially on his own podcast. At one point, he laid it out plain. To him, a so-called boss bae isn't about being successful in her career or standing tall in financial independence. Nope.
A woman for me is handling your own, but knowing how to cater to a man's needs.
Yeah, because in Cam's book, a woman who can't cook, stay quiet, and let a man lead doesn't qualify as a real woman at all. Of course, the internet tore him apart for those sentiments. But y'all know Cam. He has never, not once, walked back his words. If anything, he probably wasn't even bothered, since most of the heat came from women who, in his opinion, are supposed to submit and fall in line anyway.
And I think a lot of times when you get that aesthetic of like, I'm a boss bitch, like I'm a this, I'm a that, no, baby, like, but you can't cook.
Okay.
You don't know when to be quiet. You don't know how to allow a man to lead.
But here's the part that really makes people stop and shake their heads. The irony of it all. Because this is coming from a man who, as a licensed psychologist on his own show bluntly pointed out, is selectively choosing when he wants to be active. In other words, Cam picks and chooses when to show up, leaving behind a trail of dysfunction. Yet somehow, he's the same man trying to lecture women about how to properly build a family. The contradiction writes itself.
You're being very action-based. You're not taking your time. You're being very action-based.
I'm taking my time.
You're being very action-based. You have 8 kids with 3 different women.
Yes.
You are creating, procreating, and multiplying. That is not taking your time. You're being very selectively active, okay?
You can't make this stuff up. But as if it couldn't get any worse, Jasmin Brown willingly walked straight into this circus. For years, Jazz carved out her online persona as a firecracker comedian, building a whole brand on savage rants and razor-sharp sketches that roasted pick-me women to oblivion. She built her crown as the anti-pick-me queen, the loudest voice for self-respect and zero tolerance for bare minimum men.
She crowned herself the anti-pick-me queen, the one who stood tall for self-respect and bare minimum intolerance.
Hey, besties. I know I'm gonna offend some people, but trust me, this is coming out of love. This message is for all the pick-me's. Pick-me's are women who try to do everything right just so a man can choose me.
Her message came loud, sharp, and unapologetic. Never be the woman carrying all the weight. Don't be the one slaving in the kitchen, cleaning up messes, paying the bills, and playing therapist while he tosses you scraps in return. Jazz became the voice for a whole generation of women who were tired of giving everything and getting the bare minimum back.
Don't get played. If you are making a man's life easier, i.e. cooking, cleaning, providing whenever he wants and he's giving you the minimum, he's never going to do more.
And that's exactly why her current situation hits so weird. It's not just a contradiction, it's a complete role reversal. The same woman who once roasted pick-me-ass for sport is now being whispered about as the very thing she used to clown. The irony is impossible to ignore because it feels like Jasmine is living out the same mistake she used to warn her followers against. The moment she fell head over heels for Cam Newton, it was game over. Her entire philosophy went up in smoke right in front of everybody. Suddenly, in interview after interview, Jasmine wasn't dragging pick-me-ass anymore. She was praising her role as one. She proudly called herself a servant to Cam, bragging about anticipating his every need. packing and unpacking his bags like a full-time assistant, even scratching his back until he fell asleep. At one point, she flat out declared that she had found joy in serving him.
My love is my superpower. And I used to hate that about myself. But now it's like, I'm just embracing it. Like, that's who I am. Like, if I love you, I can heal you. But
it's your joy.
It is my joy. You know, I love to see him eating the meal that I cooked. I love seeing him sleep easy. Like every night, like clockwork, I scratch this man's back to sleep. And I know when he's asleep because I can tell when his breathing changes. And some people might think that's psychotic, but that's like, I just know that's when I'm like, oh, I can stop now. But I find joy in being your rest. And it shouldn't be conditional.
I'm not gonna lie, the way Cam gets these women to switch up like this honestly needs to be studied. Because this wasn't some little tweak, it was a full-on bizarro world transformation. For longtime fans, it felt like watching Jasmine step into a parallel universe. One day she's preaching self-respect and bare minimum intolerance. The next she's finding happiness in serving a man. And the betrayal cut both ways, personal and professional. To see her embrace the exact role she once ridiculed came off like the ultimate hypocrisy. The internet wasted no time dragging her for it. Reactions were swift, brutal, and unforgiving because people don't forget when you preach one sermon and live the opposite. One user nailed it with a line that echoed everywhere. Cam out here making single moms just like Nick Cannon. That stung because it wasn't just funny, it was true. And from there, the claws only sank deeper. People pointed to the glaring contradictions in Jasmine's post and said she had no one to blame but herself. Now, to be fair, a handful of sympathetic voices popped up, reminding everyone that even the loudest critics of toxic relationships can end up in one. But the overwhelming majority weren't buying it. To them, this wasn't a blindside. Jasmine walked right into a fire she could clearly see, ignoring patterns of behavior Cam has been flaunting for years. One especially cutting comment drove it home. Cam is weird, and the women that deal with him clearly have something going on too. And that's the real kicker. People are holding Cam accountable, sure, but they're also questioning Jasmine's judgment. At some point, she's going to have to face the fact that she's been an active participant in her own downfall. Her emotional Instagram post wasn't just an update. It read like a desperate cry for help disguised as a caption. Maybe it was a jab at Cam, but underneath, it came off like raw, unfiltered breakdown energy. Almost like Jasmine was admitting to herself, in real time, that she had officially become the very thing she used to mock.
You're not taking yourself to get your nails done. You're not doing none of that, but he's supposed to come over here and do all of that shit that you're not even doing that for yourself. It's giving very much save me. It's giving very much damsel in distress.
But here's the thing. While plenty of folks believe Jasmine has finally seen the light and will eventually pull a Kia Proctor and walk away, the truth feels messier. Because let's be real, ain't no way she's just now realizing who Cam Newton is. She knew the red flags, she built a brand clowning those exact red flags, and yet she chose to have a baby with him, and another on the way, making him a father of 9. That's why it's hard to imagine her leaving anytime soon. More likely, she'll stick around to prove a point, patch up the image, and pretend things are fine. But best believe this won't be the last time we see one of Jasmine's emotional outbursts spill onto the timeline. This is only the beginning. Because if anything, this screams one thing loud and clear. The honeymoon phase is over. Jasmine is now dealing with the real Cam. And that's the sting. She warned other women about men like him, mocked them for ignoring the signs, and still walked headfirst into the fire. And the coldest part? Cam hasn't changed, not one bit.